Hello everybody, my name is JD Shadow. What are you doing watching Guild Wars 2 on my channel right now? Besides the fact that I have been enjoying the game as opposed to some other MMOs that I have tried and I have gotten into in recent years. Well, this has to do with a particular question that keeps popping up ever since ArenaNet announced the new expansion Heart of Thorns at PAX South. It is a question that popped up yet again in a recent Peachy Party Twitch chat where Peachy throws every Tuesday on her Twitch channel, and even though everything is on the up and up as far as the Twitch chat is concerned, one particular question did pop up in this particular stream, which was again, when is Heart of Thorns going to come out? Now on stage they said that the release date is when they are ready. And of course Colin Johansson didn't exactly elaborate on this when Peachy interviewed him post PAX South press conference. Now of course the same answer was given in the Twitch stream. However, I want to elaborate a little bit of to why that's a valid response, because we have seen time and time again that things that are released too early have been coming out with pretty much every single bug you can possibly imagine. It is good to wait for these things. It is good if you have a delay for these things, though there is a devil's advocate that we will put into this whole scenario when we get to it. But first, if you want to know why it is good to let them develop this, let them have the time to develop this and not want a particular concrete release date, street date for Heart of Thorns, you don't have to go any further than last year and what happened on last year. Let's take a look, for example, at what Blizzard had to deal with their Warlords of Draenor release. When it released, it was hit with long queue times, lag, poor performance, and a DOS attack. They had to take their servers offline in Europe, and they had to apologize on the WoW forums, and they had to give everybody 5 free days of playtime in order to compensate for what had happened on that launch. Now, you could probably say that it is not directly Blizzard's fault as to what had occurred there. It could have been something on the user's end. However, I doubt that it would be that, if at all. When he was asked about this, the executive producer J. Allen Brock posted the apology and said that, quote, "We've expanded the new instancing tech we use to improve queues on Saturday, and we're continuing the process of applying that to raise the capacity of all realms again. This will result in approximately double the pre-launch capacity on each realm, which should greatly reduce queue times for most realms, if not eliminate queues altogether." Normally when I was able to play WoW, I never got a queue time, but I was not on a highly populated server. I was usually on a medium populated server, and there was a good reason for that. And now you know the reason. Definitely Blizzard was not ready to launch the game. However, they had a deadline. Activision, who owns Blizzard, gave them a deadline apparently, and because of that, Blizzard rushed the product into store shelves in order to meet that deadline before it was ready, obviously. And then you saw the end result of that, which we know Blizzard games can be bugged. We know Blizzard games have a tendency to have these sort of issues, but this was a rare occurrence, a very bad occurrence for Blizzard. And it resulted in what you heard, the 5 free days of playtime. WoW is one of the few MMOs that are still not free to play. It is the $15 a month fee for you to play the game, and it's because of that that people might have felt a little bit jaded by this whole scenario. But that wasn't the only case we had last year. Lest we not forget the disastrous launch of Assassin's Creed Unity. Not to be outdone with the other issues that Ubisoft had last year, the issues with Watch Dogs being one of the main ones. Assassin's Creed Unity came out of the gate as a broken mess. You had the clipping, the falling through floors, and the ever infamous glitched face. Do we want to show you just what exactly we're talking about? Of course, this is more along the lines of Ubisoft being Ubisoft last year. They have been tremendously bad at putting out these types of games that have these types of glitches or these types of controversies that happened all throughout last year. In both of those games, there was a particular problem, in that they were released before they were ready to be released. Let's take Warlords of Draenor. Those server queue times. Do you think that Blizzard was ready for those particular queue times to come onto their fold? Do you think they were ready for the server load? Do you think they were ready for so many people to want to come back on board to WoW? Obviously not, because you saw the end result. Now obviously the DOS attacks that happened on the back of it. And we all know that Assassin's Creed Unity was not ready to come out, especially when you consider that Black Flag came out earlier that same year. And we have yet to see them try that tactic to have 2 Assassin's Creed games come out in the very same year. It has become like a sports game in a way. It has become a yearly release, sort of like Call of Duty, which has its own issues up until recently, that is, of not letting developmental companies have a chance to actually make and craft the game the way that they want it. They always have to rush it out because the publishing companies want to see the bottom line. They want to see the profits. They want to see the end result. And when you rush stuff out of the gate, you see the things like day one patches. You see the things like poor PC optimization. You see stuff like bugs and glitches and all that other stuff. To where in Assassin's Creed Unity, Ubisoft said they fixed them, but there are still being several reports of those bugs still being present and just making a bad situation worse. And you couple that with the fact that this culture is not a cheap culture. $60 a game for a AAA title. You're talking about games that cost a good bit of money for us to have an entry into. And when you see that kind of stuff happening to a game in which you are anticipating a title that has been hyped up, a title that has had its hype train derailed by these horrific bugs and the glitch face and the server queue times would take forever, you suddenly get jaded and you suddenly lose trust in the people who you put that money for. Simply put, games whose developmental process doesn't have enough time to see the game flourish and to iron out every wrinkle that they could possibly iron out, come out undone. They are not ready to come out yet. They do to meet a deadline in order to fill somebody's bottom line and fill somebody's expectations in which they have no chance of meeting. So where does Guild Wars 2 fit in? Where does Heart of Thorns fit in this? Well, if you look into just what exactly happened with those 2 launches, and you could probably go throughout history and see that those are definitely not the only 2 that have had issues with their own launches, as happened throughout modern gaming history. You can see that the more time that people have to develop these types of games, especially when you talk about a huge immersive world like Guild Wars 2 has with Tyria, you can see that the more time they take in order to craft the game, in order to iron out the bugs, in order to develop the worlds that they want to create, the better the gameplay experience is going to be in the long run. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to catch every single bug that is ever going to be present in the game. You're obviously going to have that one bug that seems to always hide itself, and you're never going to be perfect. We're only human after all. The more time you take into trying to get every single bug you possibly can and to craft each and every single little detail, the more you're going to have that immersive experience, the more you're going to be able to enjoy the game without running into these issues. Recently, Grand Theft Auto 5, the PC version, was delayed for what Rockstar said was going to be for more testing and polish. That is a good thing. That is a very good thing for Rockstar to be able to do and to tell people about, because it tells them that they want to take the time to get this right. Now imagine for a second what would happen if you put on the new Heart of Thorns expansion, you go to roll your Reverend, and all of a sudden you can't get into the game because the game crashes on you, or you have long server load times, or you have something else altogether in which you can't even log onto your game. What would happen at that point? What would happen if you ran into a bug in the game? What would happen if you ran into some sort of glitch that you knew they should have had enough time in order to fix? You're going to be pretty upset because you paid a good amount of money in order to play that expansion, and so you want to be able to just get into the game. When I first logged into Guild Wars 2 for the very first time, when I started to download that game, I was hit with one of the major bugs that people have had trouble with. This was before I got my new Xfinity internet, so it may have just been me, but I got the download connection status reset, retry, retrying, and it didn't ever retry. I had to go into the DNS and do all sorts of different things in order to get this to work, and even then, the whole solution and the workaround was shoddy at best. And I call on ArenaNet to try to fix this so that people can get into the game a little bit smoother and not have to deal with this bug. PG has had to deal with this bug as well, and it is an annoying bug which several people have had as well. So I do call on ArenaNet to try to fix this issue and to be able to have it so we don't have to do that DNS workaround for those who have slower internet connections, so that they can install things like updates and whatnot. Whether or not it's on their end is something that is left up to the eye to beholder, but until we get some information, we don't know what's going on with that. But be it as it may, that is just one thing that would frustrate somebody in order to just not play the game because they can't get into it, they can't be able to play it. So imagine what could happen on launch day if these types of issues that happen with AC Unity, with Warlords of Draenor, and with any other game that has had their developmental cycle not be able to meet the deadline, and then someone just says, hey, let's just put it out there, we just need the money. You're going to have some pretty jaded customers, and I would not blame them. So when we hear about these things as saying it'll be out when it's done, meaning they're taking from Blizzard's playbook because Blizzard did something similar, it's ready when it's ready, it just means that they want to take the time to get it right. They just want to take the time in order to make sure that these games, this expansion, meets the expectations of the player, because you saw the reactions of several people who were in that hall when several of these things were announced. A new class was announced, a new PvP mode was announced, a new World v World map was announced, the new zone obviously was announced, new hang gliding was announced. What would happen if you couldn't even get into there in order to experience these features, especially if you paid full price in order to access them, as we've no doubt think that's what's going to happen, especially when you talk about the games that we've listed before. Those are still fresh in the players' minds, and so they're going to be a little bit squeamish in order to pick up a $60 game, or maybe even a $30, $40 game that they know somebody just rushed out the door. And I would like for anybody who is going to ask this question again to ask themselves this: would you rather have them rush this thing out the door and have all of these glitches and bugs? I know I'm saying the word glitches and bugs a whole lot in this video, please bear with me, but that's the easiest way for people to get across what we're talking about. Would you rather have a glitchy mess of a title just because you wanted to get your hands on it as soon as possible, or do you want them to take their time and give you a full immersive experience? I do believe several people would side with the latter on this scenario. Now, I did say we were going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, and here we go with this particular aspect of it. Is there a chance that you could delay a game for so long that you suddenly grow tired of waiting for it? It is certainly possible that that could happen. Just look at Duke Nukem Forever, and what happened to that game when it eventually did come out. It was set to come out for years and years and years, and finally we got a mess of a game. Because it changed hands so many times between developer to developer, people stopped caring because it got delayed way too long. There was so many delays that you didn't think the game was ever going to come out, so you just stopped caring, you just moved on to the next thing. And that has to be the biggest devil's advocate there. You don't want to delay a game for too long, and you don't want to give shoddy reasons for why you are delaying the game. Just look at Tekken 6, for example. That game was delayed on the PS3 for some time, even though the cabinets for the Tekken 6 arcade version were using PS3 hardware. The reason that many people suspect for this is because they wanted to release a 360 version of the game at the same time as a PS3 version, so they delayed the PS3 version in order to be able to get the 360 version to work before they announced that it would be multi-platform, and because of console parity and all that other stuff. Of course, while no one had a problem with the game going multi-platform in of itself, they were worried about the delays that they had to go through in order for Namco to be able to do that. So yeah, you could see the problems with waiting way too long in order to even get your hands on the title. However, I don't think this is a particular case in which ArenaNet is going to take forever to release Heart of Thorns is going to become the next Duke Nukem Forever. I don't see that happening. I don't even see it trying to go console parity, because quite frankly, who is hearing about Guild Wars 2 going on the PS4 or the Xbox One? Although that is a pretty interesting thing to consider, I don't think ArenaNet is ready to do that just yet. So yeah, it is good to be able to wait for these things, especially when you consider consider what we went through last year, and probably a few years before that, especially last year, with the issues surrounding Assassin's Creed Unity and Warlords of Draenor. We do not need the same thing happening with 2015 that happened with 2014. Thanks again for watching. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.